Welcome to the 12th lecture of Control System 2. Today we will continue to discuss about certain concepts of linear algebra. So last lecture we have discussed about field, vector space, we have defined vector subspace, we have defined linear combination, spanning set. Today we are going to discuss rest of the concepts like linear independency and dependency, basis, non-linear space. We will discuss about eigenvalues and eigenvectors and about Cayley-Hamilton theorem. So last class, if you can remember that we have discussed two very important things at last, that is the linear combination. That is, suppose a vector space V which is defined over the field F is a linear space, and we have defined a finite set of vector S where V1, V2, Vr are the vectors from the vector space V, and any vector of the form like alpha 1 V1 plus alpha 2 V2 plus alpha r Vr is called a linear combination of the vectors in vector space S or subspace S, we can say. And then we have given an example, and after that the spanning set we have defined that suppose vector space V over the field F is a linear space, and we have taken a subset S which consists of V1, V2, Vn be a subset of the vector space V. We say S is a spanning set of vector space V, or that S spans V if for every vector V from the vector space V can be written as linear combination of vectors in S. So this is very important. Every vector V from the vector space V means we will choose, or we can pick any vector from the vector space V, and if it is expressed as a linear combination of the vectors from the set S, that is alpha 1 V1 plus alpha 2 V2 plus alpha n Vn, then we will say that the S spans V. Now after defining the spanning set, now we are ready to define the linear independency set and dependency set. So suppose V, that is vector space V over the field F, is a linear space, and the set of vectors, that is V1, V2, Vp, is a subset of the vector space V. Now the linear combination of these vectors can be expressed as follows, that is alpha 1 V1 plus alpha 2 V2 plus alpha p Vp. Now the question is that for what values of alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha p we should choose such that this linear combination results to a zero vector. So in particular we can choose all the alphas, that is alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha p are zeros to have the linear combination is equal to a zero vector. So this linear combination is called the trivial linear combination. The linear combination will be non-trivial linear combination if at least one of the alpha I is non-zero to yield zero vector. So if for any alphas, non-zero alphas, if we have this linear combination is equal to zero vector, then we will call that is a non-trivial linear combination. And with this we have the definition of set of linear independency vector and set of linear dependency vector. So let us define now. Suppose the vector space V over the field F is a linear space. The set of vectors, that is V1, V2, Vp, is said to be linearly independent if and only if the linear combination of these vectors, that is V1, V2, Vp, expressed as that is alpha 1 V1 plus alpha 2 V2 plus alpha p Vp is equal to zero vector only when all the alphas are equal to zero. So for the trivial values of alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha p, that is equal to 0, for which this linear combination yields zero vector, is called that set of vectors v1, v2, vp are linearly independent. The set of vectors is said to be linearly dependent if their exist scalars, that is alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha p, which is belongs to the field F, at least one of which is not zero, such that this linear combination yields zero vector. Means if you have any one of the alphas non-zero value for which this linear combination yields zero vector, then we will call this v1, v2, vp is a linearly dependent set. So now with the example we want to understand that what do you mean by the linearly independent set and dependent set, and we will see that there is a wide application exists in state space analysis of this concept. That is, suppose R3 is an underlying vector space and we have chosen a set S, that is v1, v2, v3. The three vectors we have chosen, that is v1, v2, v3 are like this. Now it has been asked that is the set is linearly independent. So to prove that one, or it can be asked that is the set linearly dependent or independent. So to prove that, we have to find out that alpha 1 v1 plus alpha 2 v2 plus alpha 3 v3 is equal to zero vector, and we have to see for what values of alpha we can have this zero linear combination of these vectors will be zero vector. So for that we have rewritten this equation with the vectors v1, v2 and v3 like this. You see, alpha 1 v1 plus alpha 2 v2 plus alpha 3 v3 is equal to zero vector. Now for this linear combination we have to find out what are the values of alpha. If we will found that all the values of alphas are zero, for which it is going to give the result zero vector, then we will say that these v1, v2, v3 vectors are linearly independent, and any one of the alphas, if we prove that it is a non-zero for which it is going to give the zero vector, then we will call the vectors in the set are linearly dependent. So we have rewritten this equation in this way, that is some matrix into alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha 3 is equal to 0. So it is basically the solution of set of linear equations, and if you solve it, you know how to solve it. If you solve it, we found that the alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha 3 all are equal to 0. It means that the set S is linearly independent, means these vectors v1, v2, v3 are linearly independent. And it has to be noted that this matrix is actually, the rank of this matrix is 3, and that's why it is a full rank, and that's why you got that alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha 3 all are equal to 0. So now another example we have taken, that is let R3 is the underlying vector space, and we have chosen v1, v2, v3, and we have constructed a set S where v1, v2, v3 are given by equation 9. So now it has been asked that it is linearly independent or dependent. To do that one, same way we have to form the linear combination with the alphas, that is alpha 1 v1, alpha 2 v2 plus alpha 3 v3, and we have to check for what values of alphas it is going to give the result zero vector. So we have found out or we have constructed that is alpha 1 v1 plus alpha 2 v2 plus alpha 3 v3 is equal to zero vector, and we have constructed like this, and we found the solution of alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha 3. In this case we are finding that all the three alphas are non-zero, for which it is going to give result zero vector. This linear combination going to give the zero vector. So here we are finding that alpha 1 is equal to 2, alpha 2 is equal to 1, and alpha 3 is equal to -1. So we will say that set S is linearly dependent. And if you verify the rank of this matrix, definitely the rank of this matrix will be less than 2. It is rank deficient, so that's why these vectors become linearly dependent. So now after giving the definition of linear combination, then the spanning set and linear dependency, now we are ready to give the definition of basis vector. So now for the basis vector, to whom we will call basis vector. So suppose V, that is vector space V over the field F, is a linear space, then a set of vectors, that is B, that is b1, b2, bn, is called a basis of vector space V if it having two properties, that B spans V. What is the meaning of B spans V? Now any vector, if you choose from the vector space V, that can be expressed as a linear combination of the vectors, that is b1, b2, bn. So then we can say that B spans V. Another quality has to be with this b1, b2, bn, that is B is a linearly independent set. It means that if we found the linear combinations of the vectors b1, b2, bn, which yields zero vector, we will find that that all alphas for that will be equal to 0. So what will be the example of the basis vectors of a vector space V? So suppose if we are talking about R2, so what will be the trivial choice of basis vector? So suppose the two vectors we are choosing e1, e2, that e1 equal to 1, 0 and 0, 1. You know that these two vectors, if we choose, then these two vectors spans the vector space V. Why? Because any vector you choose from the vector space R2 can be expressed as a linear combinations of E1 and E2. And another thing is that from here it is very much clear that E1, E2 are the linearly independent set. So we can say that S is the basis vectors of R2. Similarly, we can say that for the R3, that is E1, E2, E3, that is E1 is 1, 0, 0, E2 is 0, 1, 0, E3 is 0, 0, 1, is a spanning set of R3. Why? Because it is also linearly independent set, and also this E1, E2, E3 spans the vector space V, that is R3. So B is a basis vector of R3. So this is the definition of basis vector. Now another very important property exists about the basis vector is the coordinate representation using basis vector, because this concept will be very much useful in state space analysis when we will discuss about the similarity transformation. What is coordinate representation using basis vector? Now, any vector you choose X from the vector space V may be written as a linear combination of the basis vector, that is X equal to zeta 1 b1 plus zeta 2 b2 plus zeta n bn. So these zetas, that is zeta 1, zeta 2, zeta n, is called the coordinate vector of X with respect to the basis vector bi. And most important thing is that the zeta I is called the coordinates of X with respect to bi. And here one thing you should remember that for a vector space V, the basis vectors are not unique. That b1, b2, bn can be many. Fine, they are not the unique. So a vector X can be represented in a different way by choosing different basis vectors b1, b2, bn. But for a chosen basis vector b1, b2, bn, zeta 1, zeta 2, zeta n are unique, and that's why they are called the coordinates of X with respect to bi. So that's why next we are stating a fact, that is zeta i's are uniquely defined in terms of X and the bi. So for a particular basis vectors, for a vector space V, b1, b2, bn, zeta i's are unique. Suppose we will prove this one by contradiction. Suppose this statement is not true, zeta i's are not unique, defined in terms of X and bi. So if zeta i's are not unique, then the same vector X can be expressed in 12 and 13, zeta 1 b1, zeta 2 b2 plus zeta n bn. So we can have another zeta dash by which we can express X as a linear combination of b1, b2, bn. So that's why it is written in equation number 13. Now suppose we are subtracting 13 from 12, so then we will get a zero vector is equal to zeta 1 dash minus zeta 1 b1 plus zeta 2 dash minus zeta 2 equal to into b2 plus like that zeta n dash minus zeta n bn. Now if these b1, b2, bn's are the basis vectors, then we will know that this is this will be a this b1 b2 bn will be linearly independent vectors, and we know that from the linearly independent vector, for the linearly independent vectors, all these coefficients will be equal to 0. If all these coefficients are equal to 0, then we are finding that zeta 1 dash must be equal to zeta 1, means zeta 2 dash is equal to zeta 2, zeta n dash will be equal to zeta n. It means that these zetas are unique in terms of x and bi. So this is the way we can prove this fact that the zeta i's are uniquely defined in terms of x and the bi. Another thing here, it has been stated that a basis of a vector space is not unique, that is R3. Already we have shown that 1 0 0 0 1 0 0 0 1 is a basis vector. This also can be another basis vectors of R3, 1 1 0 0 1 1 0 0 1. You can verify whether these three vectors are linearly independent or not, and also these three vectors spans the vector space V, that is R3 or not. You can verify that one, and in this way we can say that the basis of a vector space is not unique. But another important thing about the basis vector is that if b1 b2 bn means n number of vectors are there in the vectors basis vectors, then if this is a basis for a vector space V over the field F, then any other basis also has n elements in the basis is called the dimension of the vector space. Means if we are considering R3, then there in the basis vector there must be 3 basis vectors. So these 3 basis vectors indicates that the dimension of the vector space is 3. So here one example means here one you can try that for a matrix 2 by 2, and you can write what could be the basis vectors. Okay, you can see that how many basis vectors exist for a matrix of dimension R2 by 2. So that can be your homework. You can try this one. So another important thing now we are going to discuss today, which is known as non-linear space. So this concept will be very much useful when we will define the stability in state space. That time this concept will be very useful. So norm of vectors. A norm is a function which assigns to every vector x in a vector space a real positive number which is represented as norm of x. So what is the work of a norm? A norm is a function which assigns to every vector x in a vector space a real positive number which is represented by norm of x. For example, the length of a vector u which belongs to R2 is obtained from the Pythagorean theorem by computing the length of hypotenuse of a right triangle as shown in the figure. What does it mean? It means that suppose we are in R2. So suppose we are in R2, let us consider. So suppose we are in R2, so definitely we have x and y coordinate. Okay, so we are in R2. So any point if we will take here, so that is represented by coordinate x and y. Suppose this is a p vector we have taken. So now if we want to measure the distance of this point P from the origin, how we can do that one? We can do in this way. So suppose we want to measure the length of this vector. So how we can do? Now we can do like this. We can measure, suppose this is the length x and this is the length y. So this P will be equal to root over of x square plus y square, so which is actually represented by p. So norm of p, that is equal to root over of x square y square. So actually we are assigning a, so whenever we are writing a norm of p, you see it is a number which is real and positive, no longer it is a vector. So we are assigning through this norm a positive scalar number to the vector. So this is the process of norm space. So that's why it has been indicated here. The measured length norm of u is, in example we have taken, that is p is equal to root over of x square plus y square, is called the Euclidean norm in R2, and there is an obvious extension of the higher dimension. And in general, how we will define that one? It is in R2 we have defined the norm of a vector, but if we are in Rn or Cn, because we know that the vector can be defined over the complex number C, or the vector space can be defined over the real number R, so which can be in n dimensional. For that case, how we will define the non-linear space? So here is the definition. Definition is that let the field F be R, that is real numbers or the complex number. A linear space, vector space V over the field A, is said to be a non-linear space if there exists a map. The map is indicated by this symbol, which indicates that it will map V, vector space V, to a real positive number satisfying the following axioms. That is, norm of V1 plus V2 must be always less than equal to norm of V1 plus norm of V2, where V1, V2 are the vectors from the vector space V. Norm of alpha V, where alpha belongs to the field F and V is belongs to the vector space V, will be equal to mod of alpha norm of V, and norm of V will be equal to 0 only when the vector itself is a 0 vector. Okay, and whenever these are the axioms will be followed by a map, we will call that one as a normed linear space. So here one example has been given. Suppose Fn over F. So we have taken a vector space Fn. We have chosen the elements from the field F. That could be a real vector, a real field, or the complex field. From there we have constructed, we have taken n number of element and we have constructed a vector like this: x1, x2, xn transpose. It means that we have the vector x like this. We have chosen x1, x2 like xn. So now if we define the norm 1, so the norm of x1, which is known as L1 norm, that is summation I equal to 1 to n modulus of xi. So you take the modulus of each component and you add it, then you will get the 1 norm. If you want to compute that L2 norm, then what you have to do, you have to take the modulus of the square of the each element and you sum it and take the square root of that, you will get the L2 norm. And you can see that the Euclidean norm is the L2 norm. Basically we are calculating in R2, and the P norm will be computed like what it is indicated as summation over I equal to 1 to n mod of xi p, and over that is square root of means 1 by p. Then norm of infinity norm, how we will calculate the maximum over I modulus of xi is indicated by infinity norm or L infinity norm. Here some example has been given, you can understand by this. So suppose we have chosen a vector from R. Okay, we have constructed the vector space X by taking element from the R and which having n number of elements 1 1 1 1. So if I want to compute the 1 norm or L1 norm, then how we will calculate a summation I equal to 1 to 1 I equal to 1 to n modulus of xi. That will be definitely n for this case. 2 norm will be root over of n and the infinity norm will be equal to 1. And similarly, another example we have taken over the complex number C, where you can see that the vector having 3 elements, 4 minus 3i, I is the complex number, and 1. So how we will calculate the 1 norm? So it will be the first we have to calculate the modulus of xi. So modulus 3 and modulus of 4 minus 3i will be root over of 4 square plus 3 square, that is 5, and then plus 1, so it is 9. So 2 norm root over of 3 square plus 5 square plus 1 square, that is root over of 35, and infinity norm we can calculate maximum of 351, that is 5. So in this way we are assigning a scalar positive number to the vector by using the concept of norm. So now later on we will see how the concept of this norm will be useful to define the stability in the state space. Another important concept frequently we are going to use in the state space analysis, that is eigenvalues and eigenvectors. What is the concept of eigenvalues and eigenvectors? So notice that in x dot equal to ax, suppose we have a set of differential equations, first order differential equation, which is expressed at x dot equal to ax. The matrix A operates on the vector x to give the vector x dot. So here this x basically is known as the source vector. X is the source vector, and ax when x is operated with A is called the resultant vector. Okay, the basic function of any matrix mapping one vector into another vector. Generally the derived vector is different from the source vector. So this source vector is x must be different from the ax, that is the derived vector, both in magnitude and direction. But there may be some special directions in the state space such that if the vector x is in that direction, the resultant vector ax or x dot also lies along the same direction. It only gets stretched or squeezed. Any vector along these special directions are called the eigenvectors, and the factor by which the eigenvector expands or contracts when it is operated on the matrix A is called the eigenvalue, and which is represented actually in the figure. Here you see we have a vector space with the coordinate x1 and x2, and x is going to operate on A. So this is the direction and the magnitude of ax, that is the derived vector, and this is the magnitude and direction of the source vector x. So here we are finding that x is not collinear with ax, so definitely this x vector is not the eigenvector of the ax, which is stated here. You see, if ax is not collinear with the x after transformation, x is not an eigenvector. But in the figure B you can see that the source vector and the derived vector are in the same directions, but only the magnitude of the derived vector is squeezed. It can be stressed also. So now for this case, this special vector for which we are finding that the source vector and the derived vectors are collinear, then x we will call the eigenvector. So that's why it has been shown that or it has been stated that if ax is collinear with x after the transformation, as in figure B, x is an eigenvector. Okay, so now how we will compute the eigenvalues and eigenvectors, we will understand that one with the definition. What is the definition of the eigenvectors? Now the eigenvectors of matrix A are all vectors that xi not equal to 0, that must not be the 0 vector, which under the transformation of A become multiples of themselves, that is A into xi will be equal to lambda I into xi, because they must be same vector, means the direction will be same, only it will be squeezed or elongated by a factor lambda I. So where lambda I, that's why it is a constant. Then eigenvalue, how we will define the eigenvalues of the matrix A are the values of lambda I that satisfies the equation number 15, for which the xi not equal to 0, that is the condition. So now how we will find the eigenvalue and eigenvector? So now we will rearrange the equation number 15 as like 16, that is lambda I into identity matrix minus A into xi equal to 0. So now we have to find out the non-zero solution of xi, that you try to understand. The trivial solution is xi is equal to 0, for which that the determinant of lambda I minus A must not be equal to 0. But here we have to find out the non-zero solution of xi. So how we will find out the non-zero solution of xi? The non-zero solution of xi can be found if and only if that is determinant of lambda I of identity matrix minus A will be equal to 0, and from which the lambda I, what we will find out, that will be the eigenvalues, and each of the eigenvalue we have to find out the eigenvector by satisfying the equation number 15. So which has been shown in the example here. Suppose we have a matrix A which is a 2 by 2 matrix, and we have to find out the eigenvectors. So if we want to find out the eigenvectors of this matrix A, first we have to find out the eigenvalue. How we will find the eigenvalue? Just now we have derived that determinant of lambda I minus A must be equal to 0. So we have solved this equation and we found that lambda plus 2 into lambda plus 4. So if this is equal to be 0, then we are finding that there are two eigenvalues are there. One is lambda equal to minus 2, another is lambda is equal to minus 4. So now each of these eigenvalue we can find out the eigenvector. So first I am showing you for lambda equal to minus 2 how we will do. So it is A into xi, so we are assuming that it having vector having two components, that is x1 and x2, is equal to minus 2 into xi. Because why it is minus 2? Because we have taken lambda 1 equal to minus 2. So if I want to find out the eigenvectors related to minus 4, then instead of minus 2 we will write minus 4, and we have to solve this equation. And we will solve this equation. We are arrived with a single relation, that is x1 will be equal to x2. Basically infinite number of solution exists, so x will be any vector in the form of C will be the eigenvector of matrix A with the eigenvalue lambda equal to minus 2. Similarly, we have calculated the eigenvector with the eigenvalue minus 4, and we found that the form is C minus C. So any vector in the vector space R2 in the form of C minus C will qualify as a eigenvector associated with the eigenvalue minus 4 of the vector what it is defined. And now we can see that one choice of the eigenvectors is 1 1, because that is related to C, and another may be 1 minus 1. So this can be one of the choice of the eigenvectors corresponding to lambda equal to minus 2 and lambda equal to minus 4. There could be another possible, means infinite number of possibilities are there. So now we are ready to define Cayley-Hamilton theorem, which we will find that also having a great application in the analysis of state space. That is, given a matrix A whose dimension is n by 1 and the characteristics polynomial which is computed by determinant of lambda I minus A, which is lambda to the power n plus p1 lambda n minus 1 Pn minus 1 lambda plus Pn, and the Cayley-Hamilton theorem states that the matrix A satisfies its own characteristics polynomial. It means that this characteristics polynomial will be satisfied by the matrix A itself, and if you substitute a to the power n, p1 a to the power n minus 1, Pn minus 1a plus Pni will be equal to 0, where I is the identity matrix with the same dimension as A. Okay, one of the application I will show with the Cayley-Hamilton theorem, that is a matrix polynomial of matrix A of degree n can always be expressed as a polynomial of degree n minus 1 or less. So one example has been shown. So here one matrix polynomial of A has been shown, and we have to reduce it. So here you can see that degree of the polynomial of the matrix is 4. So always according to the statement which we have written, this matrix polynomial can be always expressed as a matrix polynomial of degree 3 or less. So let us try to express this PA in a reduced order, which is obviously less than 4. So for the matrix for which we want to compute this, A is given 3 1 1 2. So first we have calculated the characteristics polynomial, that is Si minus A, and then we have tried to find out the ratio PS by del S. And PS by del S, if you write, we can see that it will the result will be s square plus 8s plus 27 plus 140s 146s minus 184 by s square minus 5s plus 5. Now PS can be written as a by cross multiplication. So now this s square plus 8s plus 27 into del of s plus 146s minus 184, and we are finding that if we assume this is RS, if we will assume that this is RS, okay, and from the definition we come to know that del of s is, this is a characteristics polynomial, so del s will be equal to 0. So now we are finding that PS basically will be equal to RS, okay. So if the PS equal to RS, then we can write that PA equal to RA. So PA is equal to a to the power 4 plus 3a cube plus 2a square plus a plus I will be expressed as 146 minus a minus 1 minus 184. So from here it is very much clear that the matrix polynomial of the order 4 can be expressed as a polynomial with the degree 1, that is 146a minus 184. So this is the way we can apply the Cayley-Hamilton theorem, but other application in the state space analysis we will see very soon. So with this I will stop here the review of the linear algebra. From the next lecture we will start that how we will get the solution of a state equation. Thank you.